Fit to Love, episode 66, Shifting Bad Habits into Good Habits.
Fit to Love is physical, emotional, and spiritual fitness to achieve the happy life you deserve. From exercise to cooking, relationships, and spirituality, you'll find all the inspiration you need right here with our host, JJ Flizanes.
Hello and welcome to Fit to Love Thoughtful Thursdays. Today's show, Shifting Bad Habits into Good Habits. And we have back the very popular Rita Black. Rita Black is a clinical hypnotherapist, director of Shift Hypnosis in Los Angeles, and the author of the upcoming book, From Fat to Thin Thinking, Make the Shift in 30 Days. Her breakthrough hypnosis-based processes, the Shift Weight Mastery process, and Stop Smoking in 1 Hour Guaranteed have helped thousands take charge of their lives by helping them harness the power of their subconscious mind to shift past belief and habit barriers and create powerful breakthroughs that last. Welcome back, Rita.
Thank you for having me back, JJ. I really enjoyed the last time, and I'm looking forward to today.
Yes, we did a great show called Overcoming Mindless Night Eating, and I know it was very popular. Lots of people had talked to me about listening to that show. It struck a chord in many people, even who don't necessarily consider themselves people who need to be on weight loss programs or feel that they have an emotional eating issue. Just spoke to a lot of people because a lot of people do mindless night eating. So I'm excited to bring this topic today because, again, I think it crosses over all audiences, shifting bad habits into good habits. But I know because of your specialty and mine, we're going to be talking more about the habits of health and food, correct?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's how I expected to talk today about just how do we take any sort of habit and shift it. But absolutely, I am going to apply it to food and our sometimes bad habits around eating.
Great. So first, since we're going to talk about habits in general, let's talk about habits. What are habits and how are they formed?
Well, habits are neural loops that get deeply entrenched in our brain. And deeply, I mean deep, deep, deep down into our unconscious mind. If we were to look at what a habit is a cue, a routine, and a reward. And that's how a habit usually will start out. So for today's purposes, I'm going to use the habit of getting up from your desk at 4 o'clock at work and going into the staff room and getting some chocolate or a cookie or some sort of quote unquote treat, and then going back to your desk. So the idea of a habit, there would be the cue, which would be typically sitting at your desk, and maybe there's a lull in your day, or it's a blood sugar crash because you've ate lunch a few hours ago, or you are just stressed out because you have a lot of work to do at 4. Maybe there's that phone call that you don't want to do. So usually for a lot of people that I work with, the 4 o'clock, that kind of lull in the afternoon, people have become habituated into going and, quote unquote, looking for something to amuse themselves or to treat themselves to get through the rest of the day. So, and a lot of people would consider that a bad habit for themselves, and something that seems to have more power than them when they go to try and control it. So what happens is we have the cue, which is we're sitting at the desk, and maybe it's usually it's a time or it's a feeling. So that's the outside or internal trigger. And then we have the routine. We get up from our desk, we go into the staff room, we kind of rummage around, we see is there any chocolate or treat in there? Did somebody leave a dozen cookies behind or bring in the cookies to the office? And then we grab that cookie and we eat it in the staff room, or we take it back to our desk. And then often the reward is the break, but we've also had the cookie and we get the sugar rush of the cookies. So there's that full spectrum of cue, routine, reward. Bam. So that is the anatomy of a habit. So how habits are formed is that we will repeat a habit a couple of times. Now, this is very, very interesting. They just did some research on this last year, and there was an article published in the Scientific American over the summer about how habits get deeply entrenched into our unconscious mind. Because when we first start a habit, it's not deeply unconscious. When we first start a habit, we just do it. Oh, I get up from my desk, I go get a cookie, I come sit down. But what happens is the next day, we might get a little urge to do the same thing. Why? Because what happened the day before caused us pleasure. Somewhere in our brain said, oh, that worked for me. That gave me a little break. The sugar from the cookie gave me a little rush. I liked that. Let's maybe have that happen again. So the next day, we go through our day and we get to 4 o'clock, and maybe we get that little tip tap from our brain saying, wow, let's do that routine again. And we do it. Now, the next time we do it, we've now created a new neural loop that is reinforcing the neural loop from before. Now, after we do this about 4, 5, 6 times, let's say 6 times by the end of the week, that habit is now moved from our more conscious mind to our deeper subconscious mind. Now, something like with regards to weight management and food, we're dealing both with physical and mental because the sugar from the treat or the fatty, salty carbohydrate treat triggered our brain, and our brain's pleasure centers also got a little tickle there. And so there's a duality there. There's not only just the cue routine reward, which is going on in the mind, but there's also the physical thing going on as well. So you have this message from your body and your brain saying, let's do that again. We like that. So that is how a habit gets deeply rooted in our unconscious mind. And what happened in the Scientific American is they basically had a rat go through a maze towards sugar water. And the first time the rat did that activity, there was a cue, which was a sound. The rat went through the maze and got sugar water at the end as a reward. The first time the rat went through, there was high level brain activity. They had put electrodes on the rat's brain, and they saw that very high level brain activity, obviously, because this was a new habit that the rat was learning. But now the second, third, fourth time, less brain activity. And by the time they got to the fifth, sixth, seventh time, there's very little brain activity. So what we learn is that very, very quickly, habits get deeply rooted in our deep unconscious mind. And once they're down there, they are difficult to change.
Because we are unconscious of them?
Because once they get, thank you for asking, what happens is once they're down in what the part of the brain called the basal ganglia, that's automatic response. Like that, it's almost an automatic response going on. There is some consciousness about it. Yes, we'll be thinking, gosh, I'm getting up to go get that cookie. I didn't want to do that. I'm getting fat, or this makes me feel out of control. Why am I doing this? But there's a stronger drive now. There's the middle brain and the basal ganglia literally driving us towards that, even though consciously we may be saying to ourselves, I shouldn't eat that cookie. It's too many calories, or I shouldn't eat so much sugar in the afternoon. It makes me sleepy. The deeper brain says, I want that feeling. And often, like with an afternoon break, often the deeper reward isn't even the food, but it is the break. Often we won't give ourselves that break when we need it. I often see this with clients. People will not give themselves a break, but what they will do is get up and go get a snack because that's quote unquote doing something. But then they go in the stand in the staff room and sort of tune out, so to speak. And that gives them that little brain break. And the brain says, oh, I like that brain break. Let me do that again. But unfortunately, what's also going on is a cookie is going in your mouth and into your system. So that is why once a habit is deeply rooted into the unconscious mind, it is beyond our conscious thought. So we can't just consciously go, oh, well, I don't want to eat that cookie today. That's not going to have a lot of power over you. Or I hope I don't eat that cookie today at 4. That there's now deeper mechanisms at play driving you towards eating that cookie.
While I totally am hearing, and the research is there, and the subconscious mind is very powerful, 88% of our brain power for sure. I'm just also wondering how much our conscious mind can shift some of those subconscious behaviors. So I know you said it's not going to have a lot of power because, as we know, the conscious mind is only 12% versus the subconscious 88%. But the whole habit had to start with a conscious choice in the first place, right?
Absolutely. The habit started when we were sitting at our desk and we decided to go get a cookie in the staff room, or we decided not to get up and go exercise in the morning, or we decided, it usually a habit begins as we have a lot more conscious say in the beginning of a habit than once we have repeated that habit a number of times. And the same goes for healthy habits, right? So that's why when we want to make a healthy change, we sort of need to make it a project. If especially if we're going to shift from an unhealthy habit to a healthy habit, there needs to be sort of a project mentality about it, just because we want to engage our conscious mind, which is sort of the critical analytical problem solving part of the brain. We want to get that involved first, so that then we can then reverse, not necessarily reverse the old habit, but replace it with a new healthy habit. And I'd be happy to walk you through how we do that.
Is this part of the steps to
Yes,
shift a bad habit
yes.
into a good one?
Mm-hmm.
I still want to chat though a little bit more, because on this show and in my own work and in my own life, I do a lot of both the
Right.
subconscious work as well as the conscious work. And I even though again it's 12 to 88% conscious to subconscious mind, I do want your feedback in terms of the way that you work with people and how you've helped people, that there is, because you're using both, correct? You're not just using
Oh,
hypnosis.
absolutely not. I think one of the things that is important to know is that hypnosis works with both the conscious and the unconscious, but we need both our conscious and our unconscious mind to make changes. And so, definitely, what we're dealing with at any time, and even in the study, JJ, I didn't mean to say it is all unconscious. They do say even when a habit is running itself out, like the loop of get up, go eat the cookie, come sit back down, there is some conscious mind there that exists. And it could be lucidly saying, hey, we're eating that cookie, or we, and there are ways, and as I get into the steps of breaking out of there, we can intercept ourselves. But I'm just saying that once that habit has been deeply entrenched in the unconscious mind, that there is a definite, like you said, there's 12% of our mind is the conscious, critical, analytical brain. The other 88% is that unconscious mind, that is our beliefs and our memory and our imagination and our habit and our automatic responses. So once that 88% says, even though the conscious mind's saying, hey, I don't want those calories, I don't want that sugar, that unconscious mind says, I need that break. This works for me. I like that little high that I get from the sugar. We're going to make it happen. You know, when I work with smokers, even though consciously people don't want to be smoking cigarettes, their unconscious mind says, hey, that break I take with my coffee in the afternoon or after lunch, or with my coffee in the morning, it works for me. It helps me get me through my day, even though our conscious mind may be saying, but it's killing me and it smells and nobody likes it when I smoke. The unconscious mind is driving people. And what happens is there's an agitation that occurs, that it with the what I call the ringing phone of habit. So when once a trigger happens, the mind gets so agitated, it really wants that habit to happen, so much so that there's that unconscious pull. It feels like an agitation. So once we get habituated to eat that cookie, not only is our mind driving us, but it does feel physical. It feels, a lot of people will say, well, but I start feeling hungry. And I say, is it hunger or is it phantom hunger? Because really what is occurring is your body is just getting agitated, because your mind's getting agitated, because it expects you to get up from your chair and go get that cookie. It's the same with the smoker. They'll say, but I'm withdrawing from nicotine and that's why I feel bad. I say, no, 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 it's not about the nicotine. It really is, your body is agitated because your brain wants that cigarette. Because many people can go without cigarettes if they have to, like on long plane rides, or if they're, you know, visiting friends in the hospital, or if they're with parents. A lot of people will go a whole weekend with their parents because their parents don't know they smoke, and then they'll come back Monday morning and they'll start smoking. But they went the whole withdrawal period from nicotine, they were fine. They didn't need the nicotine. But once their brain knew, oh, I'm away from my parents, I can smoke, it creates an agitation. So a lot of our habits, even though consciously we know that we shouldn't be doing them, or we are trying not to do them, that unconscious mind, once it gets a hold of something, it literally drives us with, and I'm sure you see this with your clients, JJ, with exercise, and that's the power of exercise. Once you get habituated to expect to exercise at a certain time of day, your body starts to get agitated. It wants to go exercise. So it can have a powerful positive effect as well.
Absolutely. And, the other thing that comes up for me in listening to this, it's almost like with food, people will think they're emotional eaters because they've got cravings. And I know that there's part of what I'm hearing underneath that initial habit creation is looking for relief. Like you gave the example of the person who's at work who wants to take the break, but doesn't take the break because they're not doing anything. They can't allow themselves just to take a break. So they have to go get a cookie. And then the cookie with the sugar gives them the high, which then creates the experience of pleasure and relief when they were just looking for relief in the beginning anyway, but for some reason couldn't give themselves permission to just ask for what they needed, which was a break. So with food, same thing. People who think they're emotional eaters are normally addicted to sugar or gluten or dairy. And those are the high inflammatory foods that actually have a biochemical reaction in the body that produces a physical craving, but it isn't an emotional craving. So, and I've had it happen to me too, where I gave up gluten and then I stopped salivating when I smelled pizza. And it was one of those, wow, I still love that food, but I used to salivate even if I was completely full. And then all of a sudden, after giving it up and having it out of my system, it didn't turn on that inflammatory response of give me more, give me more, give me more. That happens with those foods that kind of play with your brain chemistry so that you don't know that you're full and that you're getting these physical reactions of saying, I want more, I want more, I want more, when it's actually, and people think it's emotional, but it's actually biochemical. And that's kind of what I'm feeling like there's a comparison to that subconscious expectation, whether it be of relief or of satisfaction or whatever, that then gets created.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating when you look at food and smoking, because they are both such powerful habit with the food. And exactly what you were talking about with the pizza is that the cues, maybe what happened also with you and your disconnection from the gluten, is that because your brain didn't expect it anymore, it was not an option. That the physiological trigger didn't happen. And I think with a lot of people with food, once that physiological trigger is in play, your body, even though, like you said, you were full, it begins to prepare for more food to come in. The stomach expands, the like you said, the salivatory glands begin to engage, and all these processes go into play that are sort of beyond your ability to control in a way. And the same with a smoker. That agitation to smoke is so powerful. It will drive people into dangerous neighborhoods in the middle of the night to go buy a pack of cigarettes. And it's interesting because a lot of my clients will say the moment that they buy the pack, they don't even need to smoke it. If they ran out of cigarettes, they get very upset. Oh my gosh, I'm out of cigarettes. I got to go buy cigarettes. The moment that they buy the cigarettes, they don't even know to smoke them necessarily. It's just knowing that they have them, it calms them down. But definitely once they light that cigarette and take that first drag, they feel a lot of relief. But after that first drag, after the brain got what it wanted, which was need a cigarette, need a cigarette, need a cigarette, once it got that first drag of a cigarette, their common response is, oh my gosh, why am I smoking this cigarette? This is stupid. I don't even like the taste. It feels horrible. So once the brain got what it wanted, it was ready to move on. So it didn't even really need to smoke that whole. A lot of people will take 3 drags off a cigarette and put it out because they don't really need the nicotine. They just really needed to relieve that agitation of the expectation that this cigarette was supposed to be happening.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we're going to take a break to thank our sponsors, and then we're going to come back and talk about those steps of shifting a bad habit into a good one. So we'll be right back. Get the hottest tips and latest trends for your business success with today's Innovative Woman magazine, a free print and online digital magazine. Plus, receive the special bonus video series, Platforms for Profit, the must-have marketing essentials for outrageous success, taught by media and marketing strategist Kathy Alessandra. Who is today's innovative woman? She's a smart and savvy business owner. She is driven and committed to success. She invests in herself and her business on everything from products to grow her knowledge, services to grow her business, and events to learn and connect with potential clients and customers. You can claim your free subscription today and get it mailed to your home or office at today'sinnovativewoman.com. Is your website working for you? If it's not, and you're frustrated with your brand, website, or current online results, Every Angle Media can help transform your existing business presence and build you a website that works when you're not working. Every Angle Media is a full-service web development firm that specializes in solving problems with open-source solutions. We offer complete design services, custom content management systems, fully integrated e-commerce solutions, cross-platform mobile development, and custom third-party integration, and we're here to help. Visit our site to see our work at everyanglemedia.com or give us a call at 310-798-7228. Again, that's everyanglemedia.com. Okay, Rita, we all want to shift bad habits into good ones. So let's go over all the steps, step by step, one by one, in sequential order. I'm taking notes of how we can start to change these bad habits into good ones.
Okay, well, terrific. I mean, I think the very first step, shifting a bad habit into a good one, is to actually make the decision that you are going to do this. Why do you want to make the decision? Because you want to be in charge of this. When we try to change a bad habit, when we hope to change a good habit or bad habit, it does absolutely zip in the brain. There's no change in the brain. There's no change in our consciousness. Try and hope equals zero. So what we really need to do is make an internal decision that, yes, I am going to make a project of shifting this cookie habit that I have at 4 o'clock into a healthy habit at 4 o'clock. So I am shifting and I'm consciously making that decision. And I might even, I think the best call of action is to set a time frame around it. This week, I'm going to change, I'm going to focus my mind because it's all about focus. I'm going to focus my mind on shifting that cookie habit into a cookie-free afternoon where I feel in charge of myself. So the first step is to make the decision and to make it a project. So your brain can get engaged and excited because a project is something to do. It's a problem to solve or a solution to seek. Our brain is a problem-solving, solution-seeking computer. And when you put it in as such, it loves to solve problems and solution seek. But often when we try or hope to change something, we are not asking our brain to problem solve or solution seek. We are giving it absolutely no information. Does this make sense so far, JJ?
Yes, because I would think that making it a project, like you said, we're problem solving, but we're making it kind of fun, and there's no necessarily restriction or lack of. And most people change habits by saying, I have to stop doing that, but they're not replacing it with a better habit, correct?
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that to the forefront as well. So when you say, I don't want to eat that cookie, the brain hears, I want to eat that cookie. We don't really process negatives very well. So yes, we want to focus on what we're going to do, which is create a cookie-free afternoon where we make healthier choices, not try not to eat the cookie anymore in the afternoon, because you can even feel the difference in those two statements. That one empowers you and one completely disempowers you. So the second step, well, I guess I would say the first step is to decide. The second step is to create the project. So from Monday through Friday, I am going to create the cookie-free afternoon where I make a healthier choice and am in charge of my afternoon. The third step would be to begin with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is to start at the beginning of your day. Do not wait until 4 o'clock to make this change, but start using your brain early in your day. So Monday morning, you wake up, and I'm going to tell you a little self-hypnosis technique, super duper easy. But this, if you were going to change a habit in your day, you would either start the night before or the morning of. Since I'm trying to impact a 4 o'clock time in my day, then I would do the morning. If I wanted to wake up and exercise, if I was a non-exerciser, and JJ, I'm sure you have a zillion hints and tips on using your brain effectively to do this, but I would probably think that through the night before. I wouldn't wait for the morning to think about getting up and exercising in the morning. But since I'm going to wake up and I'm going to create a powerful day where I am in charge of my afternoon and it is a cookie free day, I am going to think that moment of vulnerability through first while I am in bed in the morning after I've woken up. There's a wonderful time between the time that you wake up in the morning and that you put your feet on the floor to get going with your day. Your mind is in a very trance-like state in that time. So it's a great time to do self-hypnosis for yourself. And when I say self-hypnosis, you can formally count yourself down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going deeper and deeper with each number, 5, deeper and deeper. But for this, our purposes here with changing a habit, you don't even need to do that. What you would want to do though is just lay in bed and think your day through and think your day through. How am I going to set myself up for success for that cookie break in the afternoon to shift it into a healthy break in the afternoon? And one of the things that you can do in the morning time or even before you start your project is to get very clear on why that cookie is so important to you in the first place. And we've kind of talked about it already. If you were going to look at a different habit, I would just say, what is really the payoff for the habit that you are doing? There's usually a very powerful payoff for most habits that we do. So if we were going to look at our cookie, we would say, oh, well, I guess the payoff is I'm giving myself this break. I'm going into the staff room. I'm getting away from my desk. I'm giving myself a treat or a reward for getting this far through to the afternoon. I'm sort of breaking the day up before I do my last couple of hours of work. That seems to be the payoff. So as I'm laying in bed and thinking about what my payoff is, then I would ask myself, well, what is another competing behavior or reward that I could create for that very same time that is going to give me the very same rewards of that cookie break? Obviously, I need to take a 5-minute break at that time. That's clear. So let me do that. Can I get up and go for a walk downstairs around outside? Or do I need a refreshment at that time? Do I need a snack? Am I super hungry at that time? Do I need to actually physically feed myself a snack, maybe an apple with some peanut butter or almond butter, or maybe, a smoothie or something if I'm not going to be eating dinner in the next few hours. So you want to focus forward on what you are going to do, and that thing that you are going to do should be a competing behavior, meaning giving you the same payoff as whatever that, for our purposes, the cookie was. So maybe we need to feed ourselves, but if we don't, maybe we need to just go downstairs and walk around the building a couple of times, or get up from our desk and go talk to a coworker. Maybe we need to go get ourselves a cup of tea and sit at our desk and just close our eyes and give ourselves that 5-minute break. So you want to think through some possible ideas, and then you want to pick the one that seems the most seductive to you. And you could even write it on a card and put it at your desk as a reminder for that day. But my biggest tip, or in this third step, is just to lay in bed and visualize yourself doing the competing behavior. So imagine yourself, it's 4 o'clock, or rewind to 3:55. You see yourself, and in this visualization, you want to imagine the idea of a cookie is going to come into your mind, because you want to imagine ahead of time shifting from the idea of a cookie to the idea of taking a nice walk outside and going and getting a cup of tea and coming back to your desk. So why do we want to do that? Because our brain is probably going to throw up the idea of a cookie. So we don't want to, live in fantasy land like, oh, I'm not going to get the urge to have a cookie. Chances are the thought of a cookie is going to come through your mind. But what you want to do is in your bed in the morning, imagine the thought of cookies coming up, and create a retort or a comeback, a way to talk to yourself in that moment when the thought of a cookie is coming through your mind. And I know this sounds silly, but this is incredibly powerful. This is a cognitive behavioral technique We are going to watch that thought. Oh, there's that thought of a cookie coming through my mind. We can even take a breath before we do that. Imagine ourselves taking a breath, observing the thought. Oh, there's that thought of that cookie at 4 o'clock. What that does is it separates us out from the thought of the cookie, and it puts that thought into the thought part of the brain and not to the action part of the brain. So we're shifting the thought over. And now the good news is we've come up with a replacement behavior, but isn't that great? I am now going to go down for my walk and go get my cup of tea and come back to my desk and sit down and enjoy the rest of my afternoon. So, what you've done is instead of saying, well, I'm not going to eat that cookie, you've actually taken your brain through a visualization and created a little new neural roadmap in your mind ahead of time of what you were going to do this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So, this is the steps to this technique are take a breath, label the thought, then relabel what you're going to do, or tell yourself, tell the new story. Well, the old story is there's the thought of a cookie, but I don't eat the cookie anymore. What I do now is I go downstairs and I take a walk and I get a cup of tea and I come back to my desk. So what you're doing is you're taking your mind on a little journey, and in your mind is going to going to see the images of you doing that, and that's going to give your mind that new neural roadmap. That's early in the morning when you have the most willpower. You're walking your mind through this. Now, you can, and then the next thing you're going to do is actually do that at 4 o'clock. But what this early morning exercise does is it uses your brain when it's the most fresh. What this technique is called future pacing. And what future pacing does is it just shows the brain ahead of time what you're going to do. And you can do it with such certainty that the brain says, okay, that's what we're going to do. One thing that a tip, and this is just a weight management tip, is that when you're thinking through what your actions are going to be at that time, you really want to make sure you're well fed at lunchtime. Make sure that you get some decent protein so that it isn't the sugar that you're reaching for at 4 o'clock isn't because your blood sugars have dipped. If your blood sugar is dipping at 4 o'clock, you may want to replace that cookie with a healthier snack, as I talked about earlier. But I just wanted to add that in as just like a weight management tip there. That would be step 4, would be now as the time is approaching, you can think through, like, let's say it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you go, okay, the 4 o'clock time is coming up. You can replay that technique that we talked about. Take a breath, label a thought. That thought of a cookie is going to come up, but isn't that great? I'm going downstairs, taking my walk, getting my cup of tea, coming back to my desk, and relaxing.
Excellent. For those of you who are maybe interested and you haven't heard some of the past shows, I did a show on energy management, and Rita did a whole show on overcoming mindless night eating, which was incorporated some of the stuff that we've talked about, but in a much deeper, more specific way to just that exact habit. And for those of you law of attraction people out there, the process that Rita talked about is also called, in law of attraction terms, segment intending or scripting. And I know that the research on that is you can hook yourself up to a machine that could go through what happens physiologically in the body as you're thinking a thought and or doing the action, right? It's training people to win races and having them, again, that visualization. So there actually is a lot of science behind the visualization process. And if it stimulates that, creates that new motor pathway in your brain, neuropathway, then it's almost as good as doing it. So there's a lot of science behind all of that. So thank you again, Rita. Now, if someone wants to work with you privately or buy some of your products and use some hypnosis on their own or join the Weight Mastery, where can they reach you?
They can absolutely reach me at www.shiftweightmastery.com. And I do offer to newcomers a free monthly, we have a monthly meeting every Sunday, the last Sunday of a month. I'm here in Los Angeles. So if you're in Los Angeles, go to my website. You can sign up for free and come to that meeting. But please do call me at 323-988-4574. I offer free phone consultations. I do work with people long distance. I have a long distance program. I have a Shift Weight Mastery program as well, which is a 30-day process with a seminar. So there's many ways to work with me, but the best way is just to go to my site and get educated, www.shiftweightmastery.com, or give me a call.
Excellent. Thank you for coming back, Rita.
Thank you so much for having me, JJ. I always love talking with you.
The Fit to Love podcast show offers you 6 days a week of helpful content to achieve the happy life you deserve. Movement Mondays and Tasty Tuesdays are weekly video casts, while Wellness Wednesdays, Thoughtful Thursdays, Freedom Fridays, and Sexy Saturdays are audio-only shows themed every week to address your holistic life and needs. If this show inspired you, we would love for you to share it and subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Head on over to fittolove.tv for recaps of every show, resources, and to join the community. That's FIT, the number 2, LOVE.TV. Have a fit and fabulous day.